Ehud Olmert served as Israel's 12th prime minister between 2006 to 2009. Tonight, he's my guest here at DW News. Mr. Prime Minister, it's good to have you with us again. Israel is showing no signs of slowing its campaign against Hezbollah. Do we know, how will Israel know that it has disabled Hezbollah completely and permanently? What will be the signs?
I wish I could answer the question. Had I supported a ground operation, as I understand we are about to start, I'd probably be in a position to also answer what is the merit of this. But since I'm not certain that I agree that this is the right move to do, I'm afraid that I may not have a good answer for you as to what and when it will end. I can say only this. We have weakened the Hezbollah dramatically, not just as a result of the targeting of Nasrallah, although, of course, this is significant and very psychologically and emotionally very important. But we also, all these events over the last few weeks that took place certainly weakened Hezbollah. The question is always, what is the end game? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's assume that we continue the military operation. The winter season starts soon at the south part of Lebanon. Mm-hmm. This is always going to be very messy. And I'm afraid that we'll find ourselves stuck in the south of Lebanon with lots of casualties and without a clear-cut defeat and victory that can guarantee what we believe is essential in order to be able to bring back the Israeli citizens living in the north. So I think that at this stage, I would have picked up a different strategy. And the strategy is to take use of the fears that Hezbollah may have because of what happened to them, and try and use the efforts of the Americans and the French to broker a deal that will implement in the most perhaps robust manner the Resolution 1701 and will allow Israel to bring back our citizens of the north.
Well,
that's
Prime Minister,
the strategy.
Let me ask you what we're seeing right now. I mean, you say a ground invasion of Lebanon is something you wouldn't support, but you know what we have happening right now are attacks in Lebanon. We have attacks in Yemen today. Also, the fighting in Gaza continues. We're talking about three fronts here. How long can Israel sustain this?
Well, you know, you asked me about the attack in Yemen. You don't forget that 2 days ago, they launched a ballistic missile with a 1,000 kilos warhead that was aimed at the center of Israel. It failed because we intercepted it, but I think this was a very most natural reaction to try and stop them from continuing shooting ballistic missiles that can be very harmful. As for Gaza, I'm in favor of stopping the war. I'm in favor of trying to find a solution in the south and in the north. The sooner the better. The question is not how much longer we can carry on. In the intensity in which the war in the south is taking place now, we can continue it for a long time. But what's the purpose? What's the use? What's the merit? What's the possible outcome? What are the possible consequences? I'm not certain that I understand, and I think that there are serious doubts as to the reason for going on with the war in the south. And we all believe that this is endangering the hostages which are still alive, and therefore we should stop it as soon as possible and bring back the hostages. This is the main objective that I think should be set forth.
I want to ask you about something that the current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, what he said today. He issued a message directly to the people of Iran. We're going to play a clip of that, and then I want to ask you another question. Take a listen.
When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace.
I want to ask you, Prime Minister, is Netanyahu's message there that the regime in Tehran is the next target after Hezbollah in Lebanon? Is that where you're headed?
Look, this is the ultimate expression of arrogance that I'm familiar with. Netanyahu knows very well that it could have been very difficult and painful to Israel had America not been alongside Israel fighting the Iranians in the event that they will attack us. And they already manifested it when a few months ago, when Iran shot more than 300 ballistic and cruise missiles and drones and UAVs against Israel. America and Great Britain and France and some Arab countries participated in defending the state of Israel, and their defense was very, very important and helpful to the security of the state of Israel. So, I mean, all these statements of arrogance, we are going to topple the Iranians, we will destroy you, you will continue, and so on. The Iranians are very arrogant and very provocative, and certainly deserve to be taken care of. But I think Israel has enormous military capacities that I would not underestimate, okay?
Yeah.
But we're not after Iran, and we don't want Iran to be after us. Mm-hmm. And it is better for the Prime Minister of Israel to handle what he needs to handle, which is to end the war in the south and in the north, rather than to threaten a major power like Iran, where he knows that he can't accomplish most of what he says he will.
I want to ask you about something you said over the weekend. You were quoted in an interview on Israeli television this past weekend where you admitted that Israel was responsible for the assassination back in 2008 of Hezbollah global operations chief Imad Mugninya. Now, he died in a bomb blast. He died in a bomb blast in Damascus. You were prime minister at the time. Israel has never claimed responsibility for this killing. Why admit responsibility now?
You know, in the last few weeks, Israel assumed responsibility for targeting some of the most arch enemies of the state of Israel and humanity, like Nasrallah, Hassan Nasrallah, the head of the Hezbollah, and many of his deputies and chief commanders, including the chief of staff of the Hezbollah, the one who replaced Imad Mugninya. So when I was asked in the context of all these events which were taking place over the last few weeks, and Israel assumed public and official responsibility for, I was asked about Imad Mugninya. I thought that it was ridiculous to deny that which is well known by everyone, which was published in those times by international media, and that Israel didn't take responsibility for at the time, but now I thought that it was not of any possible consequences that should have prevented it.
Well, you were also quoted as saying that these operations are very important, but they usually do not change reality. You said that they can create a resonance that can generate momentum, but you said let's not overdo it. So are you saying that the death on Friday of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, does that not change reality?
No. Number one, I have to say, and I'm sure that you will subscribe to it, that all these special operations that have the aroma of James Bond are always exciting and infusing the imagination of many people, and they are carried away by them, and so on. So I said, look, these are important operations, and sometimes they are essential. And I think that the elimination of the arch murderer like Imad Munir 16 years ago was of great significance. This guy was responsible for the killing of 241 American Marines in the harbor of Beirut. And also he was responsible for killing many French soldiers and Saudi soldiers and Israeli soldiers. And he had to be punished. But don't try to create an unrealistic expectation from these operations. Now, I certainly am very happy that Nasrallah was ultimately targeted. He deserved it because he was the perpetrator of endless terrorist actions over the years that caused the death of hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Israel. And therefore, his targeting was entirely appropriate. But
Prime Minister,
I suggest that we will not create an unrealistic expectations. These operations do not change realities.
I want to ask you before we run out of time, there's a lot of focus on the U.S. presidential race between Trump and Harris. They're very different approaches to foreign policy. Does the outcome really matter for Israel? I mean, Washington's ability to influence Israel right now seems more impotent than ever.
I'll tell you, the truth is that I don't think that this is something that we should offer a judgment or an observation about who should be the president of America. I can say this, whoever is good for America will ultimately be good for Israel. I think that there is a difference between the two candidates. I'm not certain that I understand exactly what is the foreign policy of Trump. I don't know that the Americans understand what is the foreign policy of Trump. And I think that the foreign policy of Kamala Harris seems to be clearer. But I think that both have proved to be friendly to Israel. So I don't think that this is an Israeli problem. I think that this is American problem. They have to decide who is the best for the United States of America, and the one that will be best for America will be best for all of us, you and us as well. Okay, well, hopefully we will know in November. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Prime Minister, thank you. Thank you. Well, the question of U.S. influence on Israel has never been so relevant. The failure to reach a ceasefire in Gaza, no hostage deal, and now a possible ground invasion of Lebanon all suggests that U.S. influence has become, well, for Benjamin Netanyahu, irrelevant. Let's go now to our Washington correspondent, Janelle Dumoulin. She's on the story for us. Janelle, we'll get to the U.S. president and his words about Lebanon in just a moment. But first, bring us up to date on what the Pentagon is doing for Israel in the Middle East.
Well, Brent, we heard from the Pentagon today that they are sending a few thousand troops to the region to ramp up security there and also potentially to defend Israel. So that would bring the number of troops there up to 43,000. We also heard from the Pentagon that they are increasing the number of fighter jets and attack aircraft squadrons. Now, today's announcement also follows Sunday orders from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to keep the carrier strike group, the USS Abraham Lincoln, in the Middle East instead of sending it back to the Western Pacific as originally planned. A second carrier is also on its way, the USS Harry S. Truman. It is expected to be there in a week, so that would mean the U.S. would have two carrier groups in the Middle East. In terms of messaging, the Pentagon has been fairly consistent. Its message has been one of a warning to Iran and its proxies not to exploit the situation, not to exacerbate the situation, not to attack U.S. interests in the region. And that reflects similar statements from the likes of the State Department that we've heard in the last days. And this really underscores very much how the wider concern here remains that this conflict could tip into a larger regional war.
I want you to take a listen to what President Biden told reporters earlier today.
On another issue on the other side of the world in the Middle East, it's our understanding...
I'm going to stick with this.
What's that?
I'm going to stick with this subject, but go ahead.
Well, just the fact that Israel may be now launching a limited operation into Lebanon. Are you aware of that? Are you comfortable with their plans?
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now. Thank you.
Do you expect Iran to retaliate?
Janelle, President Biden's red lines appear to have shifted when it comes to Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. 1 month ago, the White House said no escalation in Lebanon. I mean, what is the word from the White House today?
Indeed, Brent, this is all coming at a very awkward time for the White House anyway. If you recall, a few days ago, the U.S. and France had put forward a ceasefire proposal that they thought they had coordinated with Israel, only to have Prime Minister Netanyahu reject that ceasefire proposal, only for him to say later again that he in fact shared the aims of the ceasefire proposal. So I think it's fair to say in that regard that there has been no really reliable response from Netanyahu when it comes to that ceasefire proposal. So the White House, while it has been having to manage expectations in terms of the future of that ceasefire, what they are saying now is that they have been assured by Israel that this will be a limited operation meaning an operation that is really only meant to clear Hezbollah infrastructure and weapons stockpiles in southern Lebanon, a limited operation that is meant to take place over a few days as opposed to a full-scale invasion over a number of weeks. It's also been reported that U.S. administration officials managed to talk Israel into scaling down what had been larger plans for a full-scale invasion after drawn-out talks over the weekend. But of course, we know that in practice, anything can happen. It is still Israel at the helm of this operation. Those fears of escalation very much still do exist. And we have seen a certain tendency on Netanyahu's side to defy Biden or defy the preferences of the Biden administration. And that is why we're seeing Biden continue to call for a ceasefire.
DW's Janelle Dumoulin with the latest in Washington tonight. Janelle, as always, thank you.